Hi, I'm Doug Thompson with the series Stories That Matter, and my special guest today is Jim Hendricks. And Jim, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to visit with us.
My pleasure, thank you.
And you know, I was reading your bio, and for a variety of reasons, one of which is you're coming to our church in Abilene, Kansas on January the 10th for a 6 o'clock service at Emmanuel Church at 1300 North Vine in Abilene. And Pastor Gordon is our pastor, and of course we got a new piano for the church, and he was explaining about we need to bring somebody in who will really give this piano a workout. And your name came up, and I said, I don't know, Jim. And he said, well, you don't need to, because I do. And so he was telling me a bit about you, and one of the things that I've always found with this series of Stories That Matter is the good Lord's hands have been on everybody. And some people realize it, some people don't. And they go through their whole life, and they say, well, it was just me. That's all it was. And it doesn't usually have a good ending. Other people realize that they were given a gift, and they use that gift to glorify the Lord's name. What's the gift you were given, Jim?
I think my biggest gift is the ear, being able to hear music and replicate it. And the second is agility in the fingers. And I think those two things together work perfectly for me for playing the piano. So for instance, to take a well-known tune like Amazing Grace and then create an arrangement of that tune that might include gospel styles or classical styles that may sound like Beethoven or Chopin or Mozart, or maybe even jazz or blues, to keep it interesting for a wide variety of musical tastes that may be in the audience.
Well, I've noticed, Jim, from reading your bio on it, that from a very, very early age, you just had that gift. You could hear a tune and I guess memorize it, memorize the notes and everything about it. Must have been terribly annoying for your siblings.
Well, the funny thing is, I was so young when I started. My folks bought a piano for my older sister to start playing, and I started playing as well, but just on my own. I hear something on the radio or whatever and would reproduce it at the piano. And my folks said, well, let's check with the teacher and see if it's okay for him to start. And she said, well, that's fine. We'll start him as well. But I thought at that time, I thought everybody did that. I thought everybody heard music and just played it at the piano at that age. I didn't know there was anything different about that.
Well, and then as time went on, of course, you were able to, from a very early age on, and I'm guessing as a teenager, you'd already turned to professional in this. You had such a gift for this that your ears just absorbed it, and you could use it. Was that true? You were a professional still by a teenager?
Yeah, so I started doing professional playing by about the age of 16, and then by around 18 or 19, I was on the road almost full time by then.
Wow. And had you graduated from high school by then?
Yeah, my senior year was a little tricky towards the end because I was starting to perform pretty frequently. And then as I graduated from high school and moved on from that point was when I started to get very busy as a professional musician.
Share with us some of the people that you have worked with in the early days and moving on up to where you are now.
Yeah, so as a teenager, I was blessed to play piano duets with Dave Brubeck, the jazz pianist, to play with the singer Della Reese. Many people remember her from the TV show Touched by an Angel, but she's a great singer. Also, Jack Jones, John Davidson, the drummer Tito Puente, Louie Bellson, Clark Terry. The list goes on, but that was all just a joy and part of my training too, because this was before I got into Christian music. So being exposed to all these different musicians and playing with different variety of musicians and classical and jazz and pop and rock music broadened my scope so that when I went into Christian music, I had a better grasp on how to take a piece that people would recognize, like How Great Thou Art, or simple gifts of a tune that people know, and make an arrangement out of it that would be fun and interesting for the general audience.
Well, Jim, when you started, and you mentioned at a very early age you were playing music with some people whose names we would recognize, was it intimidating to you? Did you have that fear, or was it just, well, sure, of course I can? And it was a natural progression, or was it one of those, because I oftentimes hear that from people that are gifted in an area, they'll say, you know, I had watched this person on television this many times, and then all of a sudden I'm on the stage, and so I'm going through the song about, I don't know, halfway through it, and it's, you know, I'm on the stage with this guy. This person's a hero of mine. Did you go through that?
To an extent, I think especially with Dave Brubeck, because he was a pianist, but I had met him before when I was younger, because he had come into the town that I was to do a concert, and he was ill before the concert, so they needed someone to play piano for the sound check, so they called me in, and then I had a light relationship with him, and I wasn't close friends, but at least I knew him. But being on stage, there was a big crowd there. And I think like you mentioned, it hit me a little ways into the concert that I'm sitting on the same stage with one of my piano idols as Dave Brubeck. The other one wasn't maybe quite as dramatic for me in terms of stage fright, was Tito Puente, the drummer. He also plays the vibraphone, which is it's a keyboard instrument. And about 4 minutes before the curtain opened, before thousands of people, he pulled me onto the stage, and the curtains closed, and he said, I want to play this tune at the vibraphone. I want you to accompany me at the piano. And there's no music. And he started to play it, and he's like, wait, no, it's like this. Oh, no, wait, this part goes like this. And the curtain starts to open. So I had to he didn't see the curtain opening, so I had to grab him by the arm, pull him off stage, so that we wouldn't be standing there when the curtain opened, so that the announcer could come out. And I was hoping to goodness that he wouldn't want to do that tune, because I hadn't really picked up on it, but he did, and we got through it. The others weren't quite so. By that point, I think I had gotten very used to playing on stage, and because physically there was more distance between me and like Della, Reese, or John Davidson, so it wasn't quite as intimidating, because the spotlight was on Della Reese and I'm there playing the piano. So it might have been different if she was standing right next to me and the spotlight's shining on both of us. But with Dave Brubeck, the spotlight's right there, and with Tito Puente, I really wasn't prepared to do that piece with him. So yeah, but all of those things are just learning experiences that make you a stronger person, stronger musicians.
Well, I understand that you, when I was reading the bio, I read on there that you had been with the Glenn Miller Band. When I was first reading that, I said, Glenn Miller, he died in World War II. How old is Jim? And I said, that can't be. And then I read the rest of it, of course, that it's the Glenn Miller Orchestra, of course, but it's not the original one. It's, he was killed during the war. I think he was crossing from England to France, and that's when the crash occurred. Tell me about that, because your parents would have said, you're working with Glenn Miller Orchestra. That would have been absolutely amazing.
Thanks. Yeah, that was a hard gig, because you got on the band, or when I got on the band, the bus, and they handed me, typically you get a stack of music. With the Glenn Miller Orchestra, for the piano, it was a box of music that was, maybe 20 inches tall.
Wow.
And we didn't rehearse. We just, before the concert, each score had a number on it, and the conductor would give us a piece of paper with a list, like 15 songs with a number, and we just pulled a number out and we would play them. But all the members of the band were good note readers. But what was hard for that was the schedule for the Miller Band was, you get on the bus in the morning. Late in the afternoon, you typically arrive and unpack what you needed and do sound check on the stage, grab a bite to eat, do the concert, get back on the bus, and then either drive through the night for the next concert or go to the motel, and then the next day drive again. And there was a concert every day of the week. I was amazed that there were people in the band who'd been there for 15 years doing this full time. And, I was young and I thought, how are these guys doing this for so long? But that schedule was not quite right for me. And I did it for a while and gained a great experience for it. And of course, the wonderful music and fun people to work with. But yeah, that was one that I originally thought I might do for a few years, but it didn't last that long. I couldn't be on the bus all day.
Well, I'm sure after a while it got to be, I'm not sure what town we're in. I don't know where we are right now. And so, you had that odd question, where'd you perform last night? I'm not sure. I'm sure you had some of that, and probably with phone calls to the family, it was the same thing. Where are you at now? We're on tour. I'm not real sure where we are, because we get on stage, we perform, we get on the bus, and we sleep while we can, and we go again.
Right. Well, and part of that too was it was a different hotel every night, but it was the same brand. So most hotels, if they're the same brand, they're set up kind of the same way. And I was constantly taking my room key and with the key card, trying to open the room from where I was last night. If I was in room 231 the night before, but in room 120, I'd go to room 231 and like, why isn't my key working in here? Oh, that was last night.
Yeah, wrong place. Well, some point in time in there, you begin to make the transition over to Christian music and then the Christian ministry. Tell me about it.
Yeah, so that's when I was with the Miller Band, and I felt a real strong calling from the Lord, not an audible voice, but more just a impression in my spirit that that I could use whatever gifts or musical talents I had for the Lord. And I left the band, the Miller Band, fairly abruptly. I gave them some notice to find a new pianist, and I got off the band. I wasn't near home. Someone had to come pick me up. And shortly after that, I got my head together and outlined some things on paper about how to start ministry, because it's a different world. But at the same time, I was able, in my original concerts, if I sent something to a church like a brochure, I could say Jim Hendricks has played with these musicians, and would send it to the music director, and the music director would know those names. And since they probably didn't know who I was, at least they could say, oh, this person's played with Dave Brubeck and the Glenn Miller Orchestra. Maybe this is something we can look into. So again, it was all like you had mentioned, all of these things work out for good and work for a purpose. As I think in our pre-roll, we were talking about that.
Well, Jim, when you made that transition, you said, I'm feeling the pull of the Lord to take the gift that He has given to me, to share it in a different format than what I am right now. Well, how old were you at that time, Jim?
So I was 20, I think I was 21, maybe not, just before my 22nd birthday.
Pretty young. And so you had to have went through this process in your mind saying, I'm making pretty good money. I'm working with the top of the named entertainers in this business, but I think I'm going to step away from it because something within me is saying, Jim, I want you to go a different direction. Am I about right with that?
Oh, exactly. Right.
And then, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, I was just saying that's exactly right, because there was some security that got left behind with the income, and but the Lord has provided this whole way. There's been no glitches in terms of needing to pay rent or pay bills, and that's just a testimony to God's to His grace.
Well, how do you go from, like you mentioned earlier in the conversation, is I go from a point where I'm on the stage, but the spotlight's not on me. I have an important function, of course, but the spotlight's on a Della, Reese, or whoever the lead singer is. And now you're going to the point where I'm the only one on stage. Now the spotlight is on me. Was that quite a transition period for you?
Yeah, I actually did have a short interim time when I started ministry. For most of my concerts, I had a vocalist that would come with me, and he was a very talented speaker as well. So most of the music, probably between half and two-thirds, was solo piano, And then the rest of it was piano with voice, and this other gentleman did the speaking as well. And that took a lot of pressure off me because even though I was comfortable performing in front of a crowd, I wasn't so comfortable speaking. And what we did was we worked it in so that I was speaking more and more. I think started with maybe me just introducing a couple of pieces to speaking a passage of scripture and then to sharing a little bit more of a message. And then this other gentleman, he stepped aside and went into a different field. And then I went straight forward into ministry. And then after that was within a couple of years was doing it just solo piano. So I did have that nice transition period to kind of help smooth into that.
Well, and it's obvious to me you would be very good at it, very, very comforting from the stage, and so that's not a surprise to me that you could make that transition. Well, Jim, then you started going to churches, and tell me what one of your programs looked like.
Yeah, so part of the challenge is when whether you're playing in secular or Christian music, is that the people there, and in this case in the church, the congregation has a huge background of what they've been exposed to musically or what they enjoy, and what they need at the time. So if it's on a Friday night or a Sunday night, some people need to just sit back and relax, and they need some relaxing music. Some people really want some energy. They want the more upbeat music. Other people don't want to be involved too much. Other people want to stand up and sing along some. So what I need to do is to be eclectic and have some pieces that are upbeat and jazzy, still all Christian music, but the arrangement itself is jazzy or Southern gospel, very upbeat. And then some things that are very soft and reflective, some prayer time, some time for the people to sing along and stand, just to give it a nice balance. And then there's some music enthusiasts that may have no church background, but they come to a piano concert. So I have some arrangements that are more technically, that show off the piano more and might sound like Chopin or Rachmaninoff or Beethoven, and that would draw in the music enthusiast.
Well, so now you've done about 1,400 or more concerts for not necessarily churches, but is it a combination of churches and I don't know what's the other mix that goes with it when you do the 1,400? Gospel? Is it gospel music primarily?
Yeah, so I think that figure, the 1,400, that's concerts for churches. So that didn't include stuff from before when I was doing secular music.
Okay. So Jim, how do you handle this part here is you finish one of the concerts at a church, because 1,400 is an awful lot of places to be. And here comes a 12-year-old up that you recognize, this is a young Jim. And this kid comes up and he's asking questions that are related to the piano, the song that I just played, and has some ability, and he's asking me some technical questions. Does that ring a bell for you as you go through this?
Sure, it does. Yeah, and oftentimes it might not even be a younger person. It could be an adult who wants to move into Christian music. But like you said, often it's a younger person. They may be 8 or 10 or 12, and they've got a lot of talent. And I do my best to encourage them. And whether they go into gospel music or they're called into classical or jazz or composition, just to give them some words of encouragement, and perhaps even just say a blessing and a prayer with them that they continue to use their gifts in whatever venue God puts them, because the Lord needs Christian people in gospel music, but also in the classical realm and in pop music. So yeah, but I certainly recognize a lot of talent, and a lot of it comes out of the church. It's shocking the number of pianists I see, like you said, that are 12 years old, and I say, my goodness, this kid can really play. Yeah. I hope he or she continues for many years with this talent.
Well, that's awesome. Jim, do you have kids of your own?
I do. I have 2 young kids. I started much later. Maybe I'm a little older than I look, and I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. But yeah, I have a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. A little early for them probably to exhibit this, the ability, but I wouldn't be surprised if they would have inherited that, or maybe the Lord's gift to them will be something entirely different. But that's great. That's great. Well, Jim, we're looking forward to seeing you on January the 10th. That's a Sunday night at 6 p.m. at Emmanuel Church at 1300 North Vine in Abilene, Kansas. And we'll put this information out so that as many people as we can reach will be able to come see you. And we practice the social distancing, so we'll do the best we can. But we're looking forward to seeing you, Jim.
Thank you so much, and it's good talking to you, Doug. Appreciate the opportunity to speak with you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Take care.
You too. Thank you.